What's going on, everybody? Yeah, just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, just wanted to get on here and kind of share some things that are going on in my little bubble, and hopefully helps whoever's listening vibe a little higher today. Yeah, and it has to do with kind of not really looking at the let me get this guy pulled up here. Not looking at the outside here, as anything that can really affect your inner being. Looking at things more as mirrors in some way, that keep you maybe in a state of if you're in like maybe suffering or something like that, or you're pointing towards other people as being like a cause of like why you're not happy, or in a state of peace or joy, or any of the fruits of the spirit. Looking at things more as a like a mirror to get you to go within. And a lot of times I'll see in people things that trigger me, some negativity or something like that. But instead of like sitting there and like letting it steal any type of joy or peace or any of that type of stuff, looking at that as, okay, this is like a reflection of something that's going on the inside, and if I can heal the inner, then the outer reality, if you want to call it that, the perception of the event or person or any of that type of stuff will inevitably change, and I get that a lot, especially, because I still got, some feed into the, like the truth community, just because I spent so much of, my life, basically chasing these like rabbit holes and, trying to, understand what's going on in, the world, basically, and coming to a realization, how much of a mental prison, a lot of that fear, starts to create. Because in so many ways, your thoughts, your words, and your actions just have this gigantic impact in your perception bubble. And with that, trying to heal the outer by healing the inner first. Be the change that you want to see in the world. A big part of that is not blaming other people. Kind of changing that perception about other people, and not judging or condemning what they're doing, but kind of getting to a space of just realizing people are doing the best that they can. And sometimes when people are just in a state of fear, it's almost like it's like an energy absorption. If you're kind of being still in the spirit, the spirit can basically just kind of flows out of you, almost like a water hose. And think of it maybe like that, and it's like as it's pouring out, you can drink out of the hose. But like if you're maybe stuck in fear or ego, carnal, any of that, these types of labels, it almost goes from pouring out the hose to now absorbing. And not making a judgment as that's like a bad thing. It just is. And with that, recognizing if you start seeing and feeling, it's something you can feel, and people are kind of being tormented in fear, it's like they need some of that boost that you could offer. And if you don't understand that happens, and it happens in an orchestrated subconscious type of way. People don't realize they're doing it, but like it still happens. And if you're kind of making like a judgment of like, what's wrong with this person, always siphoning my energy, but changing that internal judgment, because then you're almost pointing to them like they're different from you, like you're better, like you're superior, like, oh, look at me, I got shit under control. That's that's not the way to think about it. Because the reality is we are all one, and it's just a reflection of something still going on inside of you. And you almost can learn a lot more about yourself by these so-called difficult situations, because a lot of times, it's not the outside thing. It's not, what's going on out here. It's how it makes you feel on the inside. You just be talking to somebody and they could say something that triggers you, and it's not even what they said. It's how they said it that reminds you of something that happened when you were a teenager. Something that just like triggered you when you were young, or reminds you of like your parents in some way that stirred some emotion that you didn't like, and now all of a sudden you're projecting that onto that other person. And a lot of times, when you are operating almost unconsciously, just going with the just almost in like a sleepwalking zone, and it's so easy, to be stuck in this type of mentality, because it's comfortable on some level, or maybe not comfortable, but like familiar, because you get so much of your the time, so much of your experience in life, you get brought up in separation, and get used to that kind of fear, and kind of those internal dramas, and so when you're first being still, and not really operating the way you used to, it can feel uncomfortable at times, because you've trained your mind and body to operate in fear, even though it causes torment. Even though it just makes you miserable, you almost get used to that miserable drama, and stepping out of that and operating, in a different zone, basically, in love, joy, peace, and not really, holding on to that baggage. You almost got to keep, and it's not even really fighting it. It's more of like a there's maybe a season where your cycle of like where you're battling, and you're just really wrestling with the old you versus the new, and when you get to a space of almost not even fighting it, but just forgiving these, maybe these thoughts, forgiving what your perception used to be, and letting go of the past, because this is a big past. And the thing about being still, it's kind of like a change in how I'm looking at things. It's like having a hopeful future, recognizing that you walk into it in the moment, but there's so much, especially from the truth community, holding on to this past, this baggage, and having like a future of death and destruction, which that's not a good future. That dramatically impacts your present, having no hope for tomorrow, instead having a hope for heaven, heaven on earth as the future to walk into tomorrow, having a blessed future, filled with love, joy, and peace, realizing that, in the moment, and walking into that kind of reality for tomorrow, always, keeping, heavenly things in mind, and bringing heaven to earth, and experiencing that through today into tomorrow, instead of the past, where the mindset of fear is always, one day closer to death, one day, closer to chaos. There's always one catastrophic thing coming. As the financial market's going to crash, there's going to be asteroids, global, the environment's going to go to shit, all these different fears of, things being a negative tomorrow, and holding on to that toxic mindset, you start getting that reinforced, and that mental prison starts to be more and more concreted. I don't know if that's the way to say it, but, as your faith in that negative future becomes more and more real, you walk in that space more and more, to eventually, it gets to a point of, just almost wanting to attack anything that, that contradicts that kind of fear paradigm. But the reality is, when you're focused in, a heaven for tomorrow type of vibe, a blessed future, you start walking into that more and more, and not really looking at the external things, the people, and making judgments about you if they're, maybe in this zone and they're still, freaked out, not looking at that as like they're doing something wrong, almost getting to a space is just letting people walk their path, but at the same time trying to, put out a different type of energy that, you don't have to stay in that zone. You face these different fears that pop up in the moment, and figure out what is it that is actually bothering you, about a situation. You look within, you ask Jesus to help you figure out your fears and to overcome them and face them and walk in faith. But with that being said, I think I'm gonna bounce. I got my typical, Saturday morning job, and I gotta text him, see what time we're gonna get going here. I like to wrap these things up though with like a quote unquote random Bible verse. Nothing's random. God's 100% in control of literally everything. He speaks to us in the moment, and I just want to give him a chance to speak to you, who's ever listening now. Let's see what he's got to say. Psalms 3:1. Lord, how are they increased that trouble me? Many are they that rise up against me. There you go. And with that being said, I like to read the gospel to you guys too. I know not everybody reads the Bible, but let me pull up let me pull it up here. This is the gospel. Moreover, brethren, I declare unto you the gospel which I preached unto you, which also ye have received, and wherein ye stand, by which also ye are saved, if you keep in memory what I preached unto you, unless ye have believed in vain. For I delivered first of all that which I also received, how that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, that he rose again the third day according to the Scriptures. Believe that. That's the truth. And you're saved. Ask Jesus to save you, and he will. God is love, and God loves you. And, times now I suggest you do that. It basically kind of boils down to, how long you want to just be sitting here suffering and being tormented, because the reality is you don't have to be. You can be freed, from all that. And the right now, all you have to do is ask, and, with that being said, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, sharing the videos around with your friends, and, ultimately helping to, spread love, spread the gospel, and free people from the mental prisons that they're in. And, with that being said, I appreciate you guys, being here, and have a good rest of your day, and God bless.